But yeah, kind of wrapping that up, and
Yeah.
now moving on to the next team that was in the draft order. We're doing this AFC East based off when the teams drafted. So we're going to Miami, who picked 6 overall,
Mhm.
and Miami's had a very interesting offseason as well. They definitely have added some pieces, some weapons for Tua Tagovailoa to throw to. Starting off with adding Will Fuller, and then drafting Jaylen
Yeah.
Waddle in the first round. Hmm.
hmm Yeah, no. They definitely put an emphasis on getting Tua the ability to throw the football down the field and adding speed to that offense. So I don't know if you guys have heard the saying. I'm pretty sure you have, but speed kills, and especially in the NFL, if you can have 3 wide receivers that can run below a 4.4, that's going to be hard to stop. Then they also have Mike Gesicki,
Yep.
and so one of the things for me that they also did to kind of even bolster that is drafting Liam Eichenberg, the tackle from Notre Dame, to
Yeah.
kind of play right tackle. They have Austin Jackson, who can develop at left tackle and kind of solidify the edges. Um, I like what they have going on. If you watch our bold predictions episode, I said Tua Tagovailoa will throw his way into the Pro Bowl, and I think that the Dolphins are set up for him to throw for 4,000 plus yards,
Yeah.
35 touchdowns. It's just if he can do it, and so
Mm.
um, one that's kind of what I think can happen, and I hope for Tua's progression that
Yeah.
uh, he can do it. So
Their whole season is really just going to depend on that offensive line. They had 3
mhm.
rookies last year. You mentioned Austin Jackson. He was their left tackle. He was 80th overall out of 84 tackles that qualified in overall grading. So I guess if you look
Mhm.
on the bright side, it's really can't really get any worse. So there's only improvement from there. But the rest of the interior didn't really. Were in the mid 60s in their overall grade, and so it's just going to be a lot of question marks really moving forward and seeing if they can develop. Because if they can develop and show progress, because last year they were a very competitive team with one of the weakest offensive lines,
Mhm.
that could actually make them a very serious threat because Miles Gaskin was hurt for 10 games, and he's a pretty solid running back, but potential 1,000-yard rusher. But then with him and Tua in the backfield, who's also a dual threat quarterback, it's going to really open up that offense if that offensive line can protect Tua and provide a decent running game. And then, as you mentioned, with all the speed on the receivers, it's going to make them
Mhm.
really unpredictable on the offense and can make them really explosive to put up some points because their defense isn't horrible. They did lose Kyle Van Noy and they did lose Shaq Lawson, which was that's about 10 sacks.
Mhm.
Not about 10 sacks. It was 10 sacks to their overall production. But they're bringing back
Yeah,
a
and they did
decent
end up
amount.
drafting Jalen Phillips,
Yeah.
to kind of try and fill in that void, but they still in my opinion, lack a huge defensive front, like, presence.
Well,
It's
so
not very formidable.
they don't have a Miles Garrett like threat, but however though they
Mhm.
have a lot of good good talent across the entire front line. Uh, which is tough to stop you if you have a weakness in your offensive line, like if you're the right side of the ball is a little bit weaker, they can add a lot of pressure on that one side with how many different pieces that they have that can rush the quarterback and stop the run game. So yeah, they don't have a lockdown defensive end. Hopefully, Jalen Phillips can turn into that for them. I know you wouldn't like that, but
Mhm.
I think what they don't have in like a stud like Miles Garrett, so to say, or JJ Watt on what he used to be, they make up for that on just having a very solid, consistent front line. So
Yeah, no, and definitely in my the strength of this defense is, uh, the secondary. I mean, with Xavien Howard leading the way, they have one of the most, last season, Xavien Howard was one of the corners with the most interceptions, and
yeah,
the Miami defense just created more turnovers.
yeah,
Uh, than a lot of other defenses did. But uh, I think they're going to try and rely a lot on their cornerbacks to be able to stay in coverage for their defense to be
Mhm.
successful. So in today's game, that's a little bit tougher,
Yeah.
but we'll just have to see. I think this is definitely the weaker side of the ball for the Dolphins, and well, it's
Well, I
young, and
gotta
I
be
think
honest.
the
I don't know
competition
about that.
helps.
They did have a lot of interceptions last year, a majority of which went to Xavien Howard. I think he had 10 last year. Yeah, but and I think the team had around 18 or 20 overall. I feel like I need to double check the stats, but the they have a I would say they have a pretty overall solid offense. Like, and it's kind of like what they were saying. They don't have a star player, if that makes sense. There's not someone that is going to. I would say Xavien Howard is
Mhm.
probably that guy, like the face of the defense. But they have a lot of really good pieces, and they all
Yeah, yeah,
work really well together. They, as I said, they really only lost Van Noy and Lawson, uh, just based off my notes here um, that I can think of. But with that loss, I think they're going to make up for that in adding Jalen Phillips, and they did also add Benedict McKinney from Houston. I think is going to add a lot of is going to help solidify that defense and the loss of Van Noy. So it's like they don't have any players that jump out at you, but I think they're just overall just a sound team, which is why a guy like Xavien Howard can get 10 interceptions because they're just going to add consistent pressure the entire time. And they've only added more depth, really, with adding Jalen Phillips. And then who was the other? McKinney, never mind. He got him in free agency. So yeah,
yeah,
like,
yeah. But I still think, I mean, losing Kyle Van Noy and Shaq Lawson, those were their two sack leaders from last year, right?
yeah. Yeah, but it was sack leaders with 6 and 4. So adding Phillips and McKinney, they could potentially make that back. And then also, there's going to be some more opportunities for the other guys to pick up some sacks. So if you're just looking at overall production, 10 sacks with the guys that they do have, and adding Jalen Phillips, who was expected to come in, and I expect him to have 3, maybe 4 sacks just with the amount of production he's going to have. That could easily be replaced. I really think for the Dolphins to do well this year, the biggest question mark is going to be that offensive line. If that offensive line can progress, then this team could be really scary.
Mhm.
But if they don't, and they stay kind of the same, there's not too much more movement. I expect it's going to be kind of a similar team as last year. They're going to have some games where they're really deadly, but then they're going to have games where they lose because their offensive line isn't able to give Tua and all the weapons that they have enough time uh, to do what they can do best,
Yeah.
which is be playmakers.
Yeah, for me, so I agree that the development of the offensive line is important for this Miami Dolphins team, but I think that the development and maybe hitting on Jalen Phillips is going to be just as important
Mm-hmm.
because, especially in that division, if you can't get pressure on Josh Allen, I guess even Zach Wilson now too, and you just let him
But
sit back there and pick you apart.
and
I
Cam,
mean, those games are going to be 35-31, or like they're going to be very high scoring games, and so. Uh, I think that the defensive side of the ball is just as important, and they do have Xavien Howard,
mhm.
uh, who, again, I'll repeat, was one of the best corners in the league last year. But I don't know if you can't, you can only cover people for so long. So
Yeah, yeah.
so yeah. But so overall, so my record prediction for the Dolphins was 10-7. Uh, so kind of, I think the same. They were 10-6 last year, right? Uh,
Yeah.
and so kind of the same as last year. I think they just have kind of a hard road. I mean, they start out going to New England, then they play Buffalo, and then they play the Colts, and then Tampa Bay, and that's all within the first 5 weeks. And then they kind of have an easier stretch. They play Jacksonville, Atlanta, then they got to go to Buffalo, but then they play Houston, Baltimore, uh, Jets again, Carolina. So uh, I think they're going to start out a little rockier, and then they're going to finish the season pretty strong. But part of that, I think, is just because of how tough at the beginning of their season is.
Yeah.
So
Well, yeah. That's a good point, man. I mean, yeah, I could absolutely see them losing that. they could potentially lose to the Raiders. They could start out. Shoot, man, they could hypothetically start out 0-5. That's a really good point.
Yeah,
Has a team ever made the playoffs after going 0-5?
probably
I
not.
don't think so.
That's
I
just
mean,
so hard to come back from.
yeah, they will be playing 17 games, so that might be a little bit different, but it is really hard to come
Yeah.
back from. Uh, but with them having an easier schedule towards the end, like you said, they could make late run if they can come out of there 2-3, 3-2. And just
Yeah.
have some confidence. But I put them kind of, and Ravens fans might not like this, and actually Dolphin fans might not either. But they're going to be on the bubble. I
Yeah. Yeah.
I have them on the bubble on making the playoff teams being one of the wild card spots.
Hmm.
I don't think they're better than the Bills. I think they are comparable with the Patriots,
Hmm.
and we're about to get into in a second. I think they're better than the Jets. I think they have a little more veteran experience,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, especially now, and also they just have more proven weapons than the Jets. So it'll be interesting, but yeah, I think they're going to be on the bubble for sure.
Yeah. No, definitely. But I think that's going to wrap it up for the Dolphins.